welcome everyone to this new workshop in TUNACONS workshop. As you know, we have each year to better inform you, train you, and socialize everything that goes year by year regarding fishery of tuna fisheries, but specifically on the fleets that you work on. Thank you very much for being here, for granting us your time. It's quite important. It's always important to keep you informed. And today we will have several lectures regarding sustainability in fisheries, which is TUNACONS, and associated with all of the companies that are part of, and part of the companies that we work with. We seek to offer these trainings to also receive information, feedback from everything that goes on in the fleets, in the vessels, to reduce the impact and the marine life. I wish to congratulate you because we've reached two certification from the MSC, which is the Marine Stewardship Council, and we have two certifications. First, the yellow tuna, and the second one for skip jacket tuna. And all the companies, 50% of the companies that are part of TUNACONS are already recognized as sustainable fisheries. And this is thanks to the work that we perform as TUNACONS, and specifically the work that you perform in your vessels to carry on the best practices for capture, to continue and to help and develop the the techniques and measures for sustainability, and to carry on with the job in sustainability regarding sustainability in the vessels for a long-term work, and also to reduce the impact in the marine ecosystem, the other species that are part of tuna fishery. And I wanted to just welcome you, and I hope that you have a successful workday. Please feel free to raise your hand to speak, to ask questions, to offer ideas. The technicians that are there, they will expose and present their information for you to better get informed, and for us to receive from your side feedback, recommendations, and suggestions, and also for the team of the Tuna Commission that will offer some presentations regarding fishery. Also, well, always uh, take into consideration you guys, the agents that work day by day to better generate a series of processes and projects that help develop a sustainable fishery. Have a great day. Please have a good time. Aside from receiving information, enjoy the day. And again, from all of us, the technical side, please, I urge you, ask questions, offer ideas for us to better improve day by day. This is what sustainability in fishery is all about. Thank you very much. Uh, Sorry, just give me. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. We are part of the TUNACONS team from the TUNACONS Foundation. We're an onboard observers program, and specifically Class 6 vessels, which are part of the fleets uh, that compose all the TUNACONS fleet. Well, you guys have some boats. And in fact, what we're going to present today was caught and was obtained from one of your vessels. Actually, here we performed the second kit of the onboard observers and shark marking. In this case, sharks. This presentation that we will show today, it's quite important because it represents the survival of the animal after release. We always have that taboo, that worry. What happens if you do not perform or perform a correct release? How does this impact the survival of the animal? Well, today and day by day, we will continue to discover this as the project sends out information. This is a project together with the IMCS resources to be able to perform. And this has two components in this presentation. The first one will be done by biologist Mr. Caicedo, which is the director of this program, who carries all the bio data and all the information gathered from the vessels. And he will explain the silky shark and why is important to take care of this specific species. Well, let's get deep into the species. Well, you know it because you are day by day fishing in the fleets, right? The silky shark is one of its morphological characteristic is a, a black upper side, while in the juveniles, the tips are quite whitish, while in the adults, it's just one color. One of the main characteristics of the identification of this animal is the distance between the pectoral fin and the first dorsal fin. There's a slight, let's say, notch. Another characteristic from the silky shark is that it has an interdorsal crest between the second caudal fin and the second and the upper tip of the main fin. So it's important for us to see, well, you know this, that the cyclic shark represents almost 86% of all the sharks that we gather in seine, uh, almost 86%. So, as I mentioned, or Carcharodonus falciformis, it's called silky, but because, well, you know that the species has a rough skin, just like sandpaper. But other species, they have denticles, even bigger denticles, and that makes that makes silky shark rougher. Well, when you talk silky shark, it's more silky. That's why we call it silky. It's smoother on the touch. Well, the Carcharodonus falciformis species is a species from temperate water. It's a temperate water species, which we will find in the anthropic oceans where we fish. We where we fish in the EPO, Eastern Pacific Ocean, it's quite common and is cataloged in the ETP list according to the International Conservation Project. It's a viviparous species, so what we want is for them to have the better release environment. We don't want them to transform into dolphins after all. Well, this is a small composition from all the fisheries from 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22. The green parts are the objective catching. That is the tuna species. The bycatch is, the bycatch is the accompanied catching. And here, well, we have different animals, ray, sharks, turtles, and as you can see, the tonnage and the metric tonnage of all of this, as you can see, we always have the same correlation between, well, that is that the bycatch is underneath 1% versus 2018, which the program started, well, and I believe it was in April of 2018. And well, for you to have a better idea from green the green space, that is the objective. Here we have the bycatch, and sharks represent a 0.09 approximately. But that is representative because we vowed not to damage the species and to perform in the best way with the least amount of damage. Well, here in the bycatch, we compare big species, small species, and while sharks represent 0.98% of all the catch, and this is 2018. So for you to see the sensible species, well, sharks, as I mentioned, this is the conglomerate of 2018 to 22. It represents 84%, only sharks. So, and turtles and rays represent a lower amount, lower percentage. That's why we created this project specifically with the silky shark. So here we have the conglomerate of all the sharks. Here the silky shark is 85.43. Uh, well, the Spirulina 8.82, and the sum of the other species, that would be 5.96. So that's why it's so important, the silky shark, and specifically its release, because sometimes, well, we perform the best release, we see the shark swimming, but after that, we could have a mortality rate, right? And we need some record of this, and that's why, well, our director of the onboard observers program will explain better what we're doing, what we want, and what we expect. So 2,938, those were the quantity of sharks with which we've interacted in 5 years of work. You can imagine all all the time, all the vessels. That represents more than this 2002K, right? Effectively, if you see comparison between the metric tons between the objective fish and the bycatch, you'll see we won't reach what was 0.5%. And well, you can say 1.5 or 0.5. Well, that's a big composition of fishery, of course. But if you get that and turn it into individuals, we're just talking about in the record that we have, that's 2,938 animals. How many of them survived? That's the big question. And that's the answer we're looking for. And I believe that, well, this will be one of the most important answers that we will have, because here you can, that's where all the activities that you perform day by day reflects taking care of this species, which is not an objective fishery species. Should this be an objective species, that would be a total success, but this is not an objective. So we don't only have to explain the release procedures, but also, well, sometimes you say, hey, why do we have so many sharks? Why did the captain didn't notice? What can we do to save them? That's a good question, and that is translated into management, good practices, not only on board, but also fishing best practices. When fishing, as I heard from an American specialist, we don't have to fish more, we have to fish better. The idea is to fish better, and this is included in this fishery. So, uh, well, starting on 2018, we have a vast majority of, well, fish bycatch. Well, more than bycatch, we have more mortality, because here we just started with the smaller vessels and we started applying the best onboard practices, and this is the result that we have: less quantity of dead sharks, a vast majority of living sharks. That is, this means that we've become sensibilized, and we've started putting in place this best practices. And congratulations to all of you, because without you, this would not have happened. Well, here you can see a release video. Well, as you know, we have well, this technicality is why do we show this? Well, sometimes the conditions in the oceans are not the best. I cannot demand the captain to demand from their crew to risk it. No, of course not. We don't want safety to be compromised, specifically on board. So moving on here. Well, you can see here we, well, it's not well, here it's not necessarily a silky one, but that's a hammerhead, which is being released in the best way by the crew. So let's continue. So here we will stop for some time. Here you can see the silky shark. Well, as Leonardo mentioned, it represents 80 something, 84%, I believe, of all the bycatch, of all the numbers of non-objective fishery. So for this effect, we've started working on marking satellite devices marking in the OPO or the EPO. In this program, I'm involved as a coordinator, biologist Leonardo Caicedo as director of the program who manages everything, the staff of the onboard observers. Why do I place them? Because they are the ones who perform the on-site work, and collaboration with Melanie Hodgson, PhD, who is the doctor from the Hawaii University, representative of the commission, who is a woman that, well, she's worked with sharks all her life. We call her the mama shark because, well, she knows she will live and die by her for her sharks. They have been their reason to live, her reason to live. So, well, you can see here we have a silky one and the marker. That's why I stopped here for you to. Oh, what happened? Well, it's a little doll. Okay, better. So for you to see, right under the dorsal fin, we have the implantation of the satellite device. which will mark and send information in the future. Here we have the design of the project per trip. Why do I claim per trip? Because well, it represents all of the journey of the vessel. That is, we have an average of small vessels, 45 days. Well, 45 days is the average trip of a small vessels. Maybe tomorrow we have, I don't know, fish. We go fishing tomorrow, and it might happen that we will find one shark or 15 sharks or 50 sharks. We don't know. Well, here we will see, we'll measure the amount of sharks. So that's the intention as well. The mass majority we've been able to receive of lactate specifically. We've gathered 12 samples. Well, of course, we're still missing one extra journey. All the species of the sharks. Well, the blood test will not only perform in silky sharks, but all the animals that we'll find. Why in any state, even dead ones. Why death animals? Because per mole we can find the lactate amounts, and to see that could determine the survival of others, and all the animals that we'll find. I don't know, maybe in on deck, in the prow. Well, that depends. We will we will determine with this information. We will determine all the survival rate of animals, and per catch, we will perform one test per shark. And here is the tagging. Without this, we cannot tag. An animal who's not been blood tested, we cannot implant the satellite devices. And we will do it specifically in silky sharks. They will be marked with satellite devices. These animals have to be alive, of course. We will not mark a 2000. We will not mark with a 2000 device to a dead animal, of course not. We have to determine in which condition the animal is. Sometimes we have to determine, as we go, because well, it's part of all the process, right? Second, the animal has to be larger than 100 centimeters long. Uh, well, parser longitude, not total, and must have been again. Um, we need to get a blood sample of this animal to be able to mark it. Okay, let's continue. Oh, here we go. For this, we performed a theoretical training course, which was in the fishery school, where we trained all the observers that will perform this activity. So when you can see Engineer Moran, myself, Melanie, and the scientist who came here to work with us for a week to teach us and show us how to perform this correctly. Let's carry on. Well, after the training, the theoretical training, we started with a practical marking practice. This was in the Julian here in the Manta University in the School of Marine Science, and we entered their laboratory. They were kind enough to lend us this laboratory for us to perform, well, here a practical workshop for marking of sharks. As you can see here, well, you uh, well, that's it. Gotcha. Well, you know this part of the commission because, well, we had two observers from major vessels trained, so to be able to maybe perform more workshops later. Here you can see they're tagging him, they're retrieving blood samples and all the procedures. They're learning how to do it here. This was the second day. Okay, well, here in this part is quite important because once we decide which vessel will carry the observer with a kit, we perform an induction for the captain. Well, this kit was the first induction. We performed this with Rafael from NISA group, and we performed an induction which we explained the captain everything he had to do to prepare the specific place, talk with the crew, because well, this job, that's what it takes, right? It's not a quite a simple job. As well, with the models that we do, we just tag them. No, no, no. Here we have to prepare, set the place, identify the species, select them, bring it on board. The animal has to be relaxed, not stressed. And oh, can we listen to the audio? Okay, well, explains was 20 centimeters. If it's a little bigger, better. It's bigger, yeah, well, it's smaller than 20 centimeters. Just the observer will discard it, okay? From words, maybe it's quite important. These batteries, well, these satellite devices have to be uh, kept cold because they're charged with cold. So what we want is to obtain at least 50 samples. Okay, well, moving on. So this was part of the induction. This was an induction that lasted, well, a long time. This is just a small sample, a small taste of what we did. As you can see, well, the captain is involved, the chief of fleet, and the TUNACONS team. Why the chief of fleet? Because the chief of fleet has to receive certain information, so he or she can specify this space to perform this type of jobs. Okay, so the conditions in which the shark must rest. Why we use the word rest? Well, because the intention is for that the shark stop generating lactate, not to be stressed, instead to reach a relaxing state in which we can gather blood or collect blood and tag them. You can imagine yourself getting something pierced in your back that will alter you, of course. So it is important to offer the shark the tranquility, as much tranquility as possible. So for this, we need in this concave platform in which the shark can enter, stop moving, be relaxed, and we have to keep ventilation with these special devices for the shark not to lose oxygen and to remain remain relaxed, because this will take some time. It won't be a normal release, of course. So here, well, this we're actually preparing the shark. This is a successful sample. Well, this was not done by ourselves. This was done in Hawaii University, of course. Well, as you can see, here's the scientist with a GoPro, special camera, with all the equipment. Here you have a container for the blood samples for them not to get contaminated. And well, the shark enters a relaxation state. Here we have a ventilator, and you know these ventilators, you know exactly how they work. And with this, we maintain the shark as relaxed as possible for us to continue working. Well, we wanted to include this because all these gadgets and toys are amazing. These are the marking equipment, marking sets. These are the marking equipments for well to know the levels of lactate, the reagents that we have, all the kits that we have, the ampoules, the shots, the recording devices, water resistant, of course, and well, everything we have recording devices so we can record everything that we're doing, because well, we must get records of this from maybe in the future to transform into a scientific document. And this is a device, this satellite device. This device is extremely expensive. It's $2,500 per device. So imagine if we not identify this shark correctly, we'll just send thousands of dollars down to the water. So we have to be extremely careful when we're tagging and identifying. And here we have the boxes to place the organic waste and hazardous, etc., etc. Okay, here we'll have the blood sample analysis. We've decided to include this in the presentation. This was done with a human finger, of course, you can see it, but we can see here, of course, we will place shark blood naturally, and here we had results of 1.3%, well, a level of 1.3 of lactate, maybe well, which is low because, of course, this person was not stressed or hyperventilated or reacted organically when they picked their finger, of course. But which all of this is extremely important. Here, I will explain what happens. This is a uh, blood chemical and technical physiological uh, amounts in millimoles per liter of lactate. A millimole or a mole, it's a measure unit performed specifically to measure the substances in the organism, either in human tissue, animal tissue, not only for lactate, you can use it for, I don't know, maybe to measure blood sugar, as you know, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this is the measurement unit, the mole. So for this, the lactate marks or determines the cellular metabolic processes because it has been determined as a bioindicator that marks the amount of oxygen in the tissues. In the human being, it's filtered in the liver, but in shark, we cannot liberate this and it will remain in its organism. Oh, hello, hello, can you hear me? Yes, perfect. Okay, so it's extremely important for you to know that we humans liberate lactate via our liver. You know, where's the liver? Here, yeah, here, right? Yes, okay. So we release our lactate thanks to our liver. Sharks don't. Well, you've run to a marathon or you've run around, you're exhausted. You reach the end with high levels of lactic acid, but you liberate this, release this thanks to your liver, but the shark doesn't. So if this animal gets stressed, he or she will never stop being like that. It will continue to live its life like that. So it's extremely important for us to take care of this animal, make sure that the shark is not stressed. And well, yes, as I mentioned, and well, if the species has a lactate level of beyond 11.3, that means that it will have a low chances of survival. That's why it's extremely important that the good practices on board to avoid this animal from suffering and to make sure this animal have the best probabilities of survival. This is our optimal size. You can see here in this table. But once we reach 11.30 or 31 of lactate levels, the animal starts entering the mortality rate. As soon as we reach here, those are red points. That means that even if we want to help the animal, the lactate level is all beyond the levels, and this animal could die. And it's not good. So it's unsustainable. It becomes unsustainable. These stress levels. I mean, the the best point is the maximum point is 11.31. How do we reach this, or how do we avoid reaching these levels? Is by applying the best practices on board, applying the job that you're doing, and actually congratulate all of you. As you saw in the previous tables in 2018, we had a, of less efficiency, let's say, in the onboard practices. Today we have certifications. Today we know what good practices on board mean, and without you, this would not have been possible. So thank you. So here's the validation of survival of the animals. Why do I include this? Well, for you to visualize what happens when an animal well, it gets pierced or tagged, let's call it tagged, the animals start oscillating, and this oscillation and this information, we receive it in a database. Well, for a determined amount of time, depending on what we want to discover. Uh, well, based on this, we can set the equipment or the device. So a certain depth, it gets released. That's why we call it pop up. It gets released and starts floating in the surface and sends out all that information from all the days that it was pierced to the animal. If the animal goes deep or has no oscillations, the equipment determines everything because it's smart. device, and it gets released and releases the information, the limited information. Now we know that the animal probably died beforehand, where it was, at what depth. So the tech knows exactly that the shark maybe moves around 50 meters depth, if it, I don't know if it's 18 meters, etc. But normally, oceanic sharks could go to 50, and it could go all the way down to 1,200 meters below surface. So that's determined by the device. And to finish, now for you not to get all bored with the topic, here we have an agenda or a chronogram of the objectives and projects. So today, with well, quite well, with success, we've been able to pass all these points where we prepared all the equipment, the training of the observation, and the satellite recollection of data. We have the point three where we data collection and sampling during commercial fishing trips. So right now we are inside within the program, and we will continue, or we're going through the data analysis, and we will deliver a first annual report, and in uh, month 24 we will deliver all the information, and then the paper or the scientific report will be created, which will help us or help worldwide for the academia, scientists within the fishery, the fishing area. We know that the silky shark is an animal present in all the oceans. So once we have all this information, we will be able to deliver it or socialize it, and everyone will know about the good job we're doing and the good job and the best job that you are involved in. So for me, it's extremely important to congratulate all of you, thank all of you for all of your efforts, all the effort that you've done with us, the patience you have with us, and you can see here the good results that we have. Thank you very much. Any question? Sorry, any questions maybe? Any question that you may have? Any comment? Any doubt maybe? Well, good morning. My name is Manuel Roman. I work here in the commission in La Jolla, 1999. I've been an on-board observer from 1989 to 98. And well, without further ado, I will introduce myself, or I will present a talk regarding the fishing efforts. First presentation, we can see probably 40 years of runtime, where we can see the number of sets or the types of sets in scene fishing. In you can see the dolphins in the red one, and the bycatch in the blue one, and the floating objects in the green line. So uh, is evidently that we can see that the type of set with a tendency for or ascending tendency, it's the green line for floating objects. As a reference, in the year 85, we had around less than 1,000 sets for floating objects, but in 2022, we're reaching 13,000. Uh, well, sets on dolphins, they have oscillated from more or less with a 10,000, is an average of 10,000 per year. And in bycatch, it's a tendency that it's an oscillating tendency, but it's an average of 5,000 per year. Okay, here on this graph, you can see the sets in percentage distributed in proportion. As you can see, the red ones are the proportion for dolphins settings. The blue ones are the proportions for and for bycatch, and the green ones are the ones for floating objects. Well, as you can see in the beginning, maybe 40 years ago, a little more, the sets on dolphins were in a higher proportion regarding the bycatch and floating objects. Nonetheless, in recent years, the proportion on floating objects has been quite similar to the proportion on dolphins. So this is a highlight. Here in this map, we can see the distribution, spatial distribution of all the settings on bycatch or non-associated occurred in from 2013 to 2022. The the most obscure, the dark blue, these are the, well, here's probably more than 50 per bycatch, and in the light blue or pale blue, you can see the areas where we have uh, were less than five in bycatch during the period of time. As you can see, the distribution of all these settings or these efforts, it's close to the coast and in areas near Galapagos. Well, when I talk about coastal areas, I'm talking about areas outside of Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, around Galapagos, and in the north, surrounding the lower California Peninsula and Gulf, and in the to the eastern Pacific Ocean, around the Marquesa Islands. So here we have the distribution of all the settings of the efforts on the bycatcher non-associated for 2021. There was a distribution, it's quite similar distribution actually, with the effort wise similar to the general pattern, uh, which we could see in the last present in the last display, but without bycatch occurring in the EPO. And for the next year, 2022, the same distribution as last year. Here we can see in this map the number of settings in floating objects during the same period, 2013 to 2022. And well, likewise, dark colors, dark green, there's an area where we had the vast majority of settings, more than 50, during this period of time. And the lighter green, pale green, well, the areas where we had less amount of settings. So the efficient effort in this floating objects has, well, it's in a range between 5 degrees north and 20 degrees south. It occupies all the longitudinal portion of the EPO. Nonetheless, it's mostly concentrated in the center and the eastern side of the eastern Pacific Ocean. Here we go. Well, we have the map in floating objects for 2021, our efforts, and we can see that the distribution, the effort is quite similar to that presented in the period time I already mentioned in the previous slide. And for 2022, well, same. But here we can see, well, there has been a vast majority of floating objects, a better distribution of the effort, of the concentration of the effort compared to 2021. And as a reference, regarding just as information, since all the fleet of TUNACONS don't perform any settings or intentional settings for dolphins, nonetheless, I present here all the distribution of the efforts in the setting for dolphins from 2013 to 2022. And as you can see here, well, the effort on settings on dolphins is concentrated in vast majority in the northern areas in the northern hemisphere, going from 5 degrees north to 25 degrees north. It happens, well, there's an activity, well, it's a moderate activity from 10 degrees to south of the Galapagos Islands. Okay. And this is the effort, the vision effort for 2021 regarding sets on dolphins. Likewise, with the distribution going vast majority in the northern hemisphere, and in 2022 the same. But here we see a distribution, a better spread distribution in the northern hemisphere. Okay, so here I wanted to show you in a better, let's say, dynamic way, this vision effort. And here I have included the three types of sets that we have. Well, the three type with red dots when the vessel performs a set on dolphins, with blue when vessel uh, performs bycatch or non-associate, and green in floating objects. The lines that we see here, they represent the trajectory of the vessel or the boat that well, the boat took during this journey. So what we did was gather all the information of the vessels that had an observer on board, and we performed, well, created this sequence in this video. And you will see, well, in a better way, how the dynamic of this effort happens and settings on the dolphins, on non-associated or bycatch, and on floating. Here we see the ship sails, and we can see a dolphin sets while the packs or while the schools gather. Well, the ships follow them and continues with the setting. And bycatch or non-associate, down here we can see since the non-associated, they do not move as much. Well, the vessel just gather around and well gather them. And floating objects, the dynamics a little more independent. Each one in other words, each one performs its job independently, except in certain areas, for instance, here in the south, as you can see them, where we can see a concentrated area of FATs. Something similar to the ones for dolphins, which is quite accentuated, the communication that is, because I can imagine one ship performs a set or set something, and the other ships, well, start gathering around. And here is for 2021. Likewise, this is for 2021, the ship sails. And here we can see how, well, the dolphins, dolphin sets, well, there's a lot of communication and coordination among them. Same with non-associated or bycatch here. And well, this is the name of the number of month. This is June, July 2021. Well, here you can see all the fleet that was fishing in this area. This is August. And likewise, well, as I mentioned in the, I, I showed it in the maps, the distribution on dolphin setting. It's quite notorious in the northern hemisphere and also in the equatorial area, and well, in the blue dots for non-associate was near the coast. And then, well, the vessels go back to port, and that's 2021, and they lasted until March 2022, some of them. Okay, and this is for 2022. That was the last, well, the last year of information. Well, the same dynamic, the same behavior of the fleet for the DL, the dolphin setting, and for non-associate, and for floating objects or floating devices. May, this is June. This is August. Oh, sorry, right now we had a slight earthquake, nothing, well, but you can continue, nothing happened. Oh, sorry. Maybe it was the emotion of looking at this video. Okay, so, well, the vessels start going back, retiring those who sailed in 2020, 2022, they crossed all the way to March 2023. And that would be all, well, in this presentation. Thank you very much for your time. And if there's no question, uh, well, I can continue. If there's any question, I can continue with the other presentation. If not, well, do you have any question regarding what Marlon just presented? We have no question. Well, we have another topic to cover, which is this standards for electronic monitoring, which is something that we will start implementing in the next 3 or 4 years, something important for you to see as a, let's say, a electronic observer. Okay, well, Marlon, continue. Well, you can see my presentation, right? Yes. Okay. Well, I tried to be as quick as possible. Well, since I believe that these presentations, you've already covered them last year, I will try to summarize. I will be faster in certain, well, I will be more thorough, I will be thorougher in certain points. I will talk about all the journey that we have regarding the work plan for an electronic monitoring for the EPO, from where we started to where we want to go, where we want to reach. This is not just one person's job, but this is a joint work from all of us. And well, also here we propose information, we offer information, and the final decision, of course, is made by each of the countries or members that are part of the Tuna Commission, which we call the Commission. Well, of course, moving on. As a background, I would say that, well, wanted to explain certain aspects of the objective of this initiative for the implementation of electronic monitoring. Well, to start, we know that well, data or high quality data are necessary to be collected in fishery. For instance, the composition of the catches, the capture per effort unit, and this is something important in case we want to perform a correct fishery management, of course, based on science. So this is why we've try to incorporate the support of electronic monitoring to better perform this purpose, to this objective. As we know, all of us, well, electronic monitoring is not recent. This started probably 2000, the year 2000, and we've been using it, well, in many fisheries and worldwide. We've adopted it as part of, well, some sampling. Well, in Australia, it's mandatory. All the vessels, all the boats, is well, specifically in long lines, specifically those that they use in long lines in Australia, they are being collected in electronic monitoring. Regarding what concerns us, the EPO and the Tuna Commission, what we pretend is for vessels that don't have an onboard observer, for this electronic observer, let's call it like that, to retrieve all this information, the same information that is usually retrieved by the observers. And for vessels that already have an observer, we've proposed that the electronic monitoring could be useful because it will allow collection of more information for the preservation of tunas and tuna and other species. Well, let's say there was an idea, well, that the observer might cover other areas like collection of tissue samples, marking, identification of species, while the electronic monitoring could uh, could perform the quantification or qualification of species, among others. Something extremely important to highlight is that, well, this implementation will not be immediate. It will not happen from today in a month or next year. It's planned for January 2025, and I emphasize planned because it's the commission, the members, the countries, the ones that have to decide their implementation. Nonetheless, well, uh, we could say that the vast majority of the countries is uh, agrees with this implementation. They believe that the system is adequate, offers transparency and well traceability. I don't know, and well they would have enough time to the crew will have enough time to get familiarized with this new system of data collection within the work plan. Since we've started, well, this electronic monitoring not only to be implemented for sane vessels, but also for long lines and transportation. Let's say, well, the well, let's say fleets, those who move from Gilnet to a long line. Also, we performed a pilot in two sane vessels, two small vessels, and two class 6 vessels, big ones. We planted cameras, we collected information, we compared information, and we saw that the electronic monitoring performed correctly certain functions, let's say total catch, the quantification of sharks, etc. And we gather some conclusions. Well, first of all, different from an observer that might be in the coast or in certain areas, maybe went out for a coffee and then goes back to its position at the time when well they registered 2 minutes or 3 minutes ago. Well, the electronic monitoring collects a specific time. This could mean a positive effect. This could avoid any type of I don't know of non-compliance when they should have been where they should have been, and also helps out with the scientific data, and also allows us the allows us to find maybe alternative methods for vulnerable species release that might be put in practice by a crew, or why not some other fisheries functions. And so I don't know, maybe the construction of or fats, biodegradable fats, innovative fats, new designs, etc., as well as the configuration or the set of the long lines. Or we have other examples. Also, monitor the electronic monitoring may collect data, data, well, key data for seen fishing. For instance, total catch of tuna. I don't know, maybe the setting of fats. Well, many other functions. And something important to mention is that it's quite useful to collect data, fishery data happening in different areas. Let's say in the vessel that happened at the same time. One punctual example is the case of maybe the observer is in the console next to the captain performing the maneuver of rolling up the net and is only counting the sharks on deck. But maybe there are some vessels that they have other lines, and there are many sharks that are not being observed by the observer. But the cameras they're planted, could collect this information, and well, this electronic monitoring could capture information in different areas at the same time, while the observer can only collect information in one area. On the other hand, this is the big but, or however, the analysis for this electronic monitoring, they are costly, they're expensive, they require a lot of time to perform this analysis. And well, nonetheless, as technology advances and we're optimizing the time of analysis, we're using AI, machine learning, for instance, and other resources. For instance, they're defining the priorities of the data, the electronic monitoring that should be analyzed. I don't know, maybe a vessel can have cameras registering 24/7, the 7 days a week, but we could we could set or prioritize what type of activities will be sampled. So this would reduce substantially the time of revision, the analysis of analysis, and also we concluded that certain data are not ready for electronic monitoring. For instance, the exploration of the remote identification of bats. For instance, the you know that the boy has to come close to the vessel to record the number of device and to follow up all the journeys. And so we're exploring new technologies, new techniques to perform this in an electronic way. And also technologies are being explored to collect more precise measures. For instance, the length of an animal. Um, Also, we pretend to set to set weights or balances in the lines or in the pulleys to better determine the weight of the animal or the catch. And here, well, I really explained the journey so far regarding the implementation of this system, the work plan that we're developing to implement this system. We started in 2019 when the commission they recommended scientific personnel or staff to perform a document, to create a document where they determined minimum standards of data collection for electronic monitoring. We presented this in 2020, in May 2020, and in the same year, we performed our workshop to discuss this document in depth, the document that we presented in May. In 2021, the Commission um, adopted some certain definitions, also so well some reference terms that well the scientific staff that we've suggested to perform workshops of electronic monitoring throughout this time till 2023 to better inform the delegates, the stakeholders, or all the parts of the commission regarding the advances or the components that compose the system. We performed many workshops. Nonetheless, in 2022, during the 100th meeting of the commission, we informed that these workshops were not having we're not offering the advancement, the proposed advancement, or what we expected because we didn't have it didn't have the necessary appeal to the members of the commission. So we decided to create a work team for electronic monitoring. And here, of course, we would support all the recommendations to speed up this implementation process. And this year, we had the annual meeting in Canada, the 101th meeting. There weren't major advances except for the planning or the programming of the first meeting of this work group, which will be in November of this year. Also in December would be the last workshop of the series of workshop that we have presented for the electronic monitoring. Okay, and well, here we see the current year and the two next years. As I mentioned, what we plan for 2023. In November, we'll have the first meeting of the work team in which we will go in depth or emphasize the implementation, and we will try to develop the implementation of the system. And in December, we will finish with the workshops for standards for electronic monitoring for 2024. In the annual meeting, we'll present everything that we've accomplished in the previous years, and I will just we will present this to the commission, and we will wait for the commission revision and adoption of the norms or regulations of electronic monitoring. In December next year, we'll present the recommendations and adoption of of a system, and for January 2025, in theory, we would plan the starting of a system seeing seeing GillNet long line in the EPO systems. And as I highlight, this is this will be, or this is under the power of the members of the commission. I will just briefly explain what we usually do in these capacity strengthening workshops, that is to present the resolutions and to update regarding the resolutions and procedures. And well, I will skip this. And here, briefly, I well, here you can see a table regarding the list of resolutions, most relevant resolutions. I would like, please, for you to focus on the resolutions in yellow, because these are the resolutions that concern specifically all the fleet, well, and the crews and the fleets related to TUNACONS. Here we talk about conservation of tuna, the fats, biodegradable fats, preservation of sharks, mitigation turtle impact, bycatch manta rays, um, and well, etc. And I also wanted to capture your attention regarding on those resolutions in red, which represent, well, those resolutions that have been that update others. These updates are not in depth, but maybe small amendments. Well, without further ado, let's just cover them. And these represents settings or fats, the preservation of silk shark, and something extremely important, as Jose Luis mentioned, is regarding the new resolutions. This is completely new resolution, which was published in August in the Canada meeting, which talks about the biodegradable fats, or the resolution 304. Okay, so to start and talking about the resolution C2104, which is the tropical tuna conservation, as we know, this resolution has, well, a certain time, which is observation from 2022 to 2024. In 2025 and till 2027, sorry, yes, 2027, we will have, well, it will be updated or amended, or maybe we will have new perspective for the updating of this resolution. Yeah, it's a triennial, the periodicity of this resolution. To start, well, this resolution talk about or concern purchasing vessels with longer 181 tons, which is class 426 vessels, and applies to 2022 to 2024. And well, here it is prohibited to retain, or well, actually, it demands the retention of all the tropical tunas, either yellowfin or skipjacks. And of course, we have our exceptions. Well, not all of them. Well, let's say we will not retain the any fish that is not ready for human consumption. You know, and also we will not be able to keep the last fishing or last set in the last sentence. We know, I don't know, we have a captain, we call out, you may call, or we could call our friend, other captains. But in this case, well, if we cannot do this or call anyone else, we will have to return it to the ocean. And also in this resolution, we have, well, the two cancellation, well, the two cancel periods. Well, that depends on the captain. The first one is from October 8th of 2022, and the other one goes from November the 9th, from 1 year till January 19th of the next year. And also we have the ocean closure, called as Corralito, which goes from 90 C 96 west to 110 west, and also 4 degrees north and 3 degrees south. And this closure has it goes from uh, October the 9th till November 8th of the same year. Regarding the additional years of closure, that depends the on the capture of each vessel, big eye. Uh, that is for 2023. Well, 2022, which already passed, we estimated 8 days of additional closure for vessels that have captured more than 1,200 tons of big eye. Nonetheless, for this year and the next year, there should be 10 additional days if the vessel captured more than 1,200 tons of big eye in the previous year. 13 if the vessel captured more than 1,500 big eye in the previous year. 16 additional days if the vessel captured more than 1,800 in the previous year, up till 22 additional days as a maximum for those vessels that capture more than 2,400 tons of big eye in the previous year. Okay. Well, we could have them in different sources. We could have them in the vessel blocks, the data of the observation. We could also have the information could come from the sampling, and also the information of the processing plant. And well, something important to know is that personnel from the AATTC will have the access to the information directly, and also the AATTC staff will increase their sampling system and monitoring system on site. As we know, we have the reinforced monitoring plan for this species as a punctual example. And regarding the resolutions for sets or FATs, within the same resolution C2104 for 2023 and 2024, regarding the limit of active sets or buoys for scenes, let's say vessels class 6, which have more than 1,200 cubic meters in capacity, the limit will be 340. Actives in class 6 less than 1,200 cubic meters would be 245 active. For class 4 and 5 vessels with a capacity of 182 tons to 363 tons metric tons, the limit for active fats would be 105, and for class 1 to 3 vessels from 92 tons to 181 tons in capacity, the limit would be 64 active buoys or active sets or fats for 2023. And for next year, accepting the vessels from class 6 bigger than 1,200 or greater than 1,200 cubic meters of capacity, all of them, the rest will then the limit number would be a little lower. For class 6, lower than 1,200 cubic meters is 210, not 255. 210 active fats or active buoys. For class 4 to 5, that is 85 active for next year. And for class 1 3 vessels, is not 64 anymore in this year, but it will be 50 for 2024. As we know, the limits for fats is quantified as the number of active buoys that the vessel may have at the moment on board. Also within this same resolution regarding the satellites, fats or satellite buoys, floatings, we know that the resolution may only allow the activation of these buoys on board. They can only be activated in on board, and these deactivation will be allowed, or it's allowed once the reception gets lost, when the buoy is involuntarily gets carried on board other vessel, and when there's a closure, temporary closure can be deactivated. And when uh, it gets out of the limit, as you can see in the map. Here we have the limits. The first area, the biggest, we have 8 north, 10 south, 150 west, 250 east, west. And the second smaller area is 5 north, 5 south, and latitude 100 west to the American continent. When it gets out of this area, then we are allowed to deactivate them. And also, well, within the same resolution, regarding FATs or settings, it is prohibited to plant or to set them 15 days before the cancellation of the cancellation, the closure that has been. We cannot plant them or set them 15 days before the closure. And also for seen or porcine vessels, class 6, they should be recollected 15 days before. We need to recollect a number of fats similar or the same, in which they were set, or the same numbers, the same. Some crew members have the question that maybe they will be forced to recover those setting that they set immediately. I know it's not that. That's not the case. At the end, maybe they decide to retrieve it the next day. Maybe what you can do is to retrieve it next day, and after a couple of days, recollect, I don't know, 2 other sets that you have previously planted. Summary, you have to retrieve all the sets or the fats, the same amount of fats, which you, based on the fats which you set 15 days before the closure. Well, resolutions, the C2303 resolution on fats, it is prohibited the use of auxiliary vessels. That is auxiliary vessels for setting or fishing, that's prohibited. And also in this resolution, it is promoted, the research is promoted, the research of the crew for uh, technicals, any type of technical advancements for the catch and release of smaller species. In C2306, there are some requisites in which we have to complete a blog for a blog of IATTC fats, unless proven otherwise. We have to create this logging and to deliver this log to either authorities or to the same IATTC. We have to create methods of identification of these fats with a method created by the AATTC and also active satellite active buoys or buoyants. It's extremely important it's extremely important to start with the culture of identifying any set with, I don't know, with a plaque, with a number. Right now, there's only a number and all the members are urged to get near and get the number. And we know that this number is quite long. And let's say the observer mistakenly writes this number, the history of that buoy, of that floating device gets lost. Sometimes, well, we've tried and we're looking for better ways of identifying these fats. Regarding the resolutions, well, regarding the same resolution C2305 for fats, we also require the usage of biodegradable materials and non-netting. Regarding the barge, the superficial component could be recovered by net, but this should be less than 7 centimeters. And regarding the tail of the underwater, the tail part, if we're going to use a net in this integration of this tail, it should have a window, let's say, of lesser than 7 centimeters, and it should be tightly knit around in a rope shape, so it won't get loose and might capture anything. Now, talking about sharks regarding the C0503 resolution, it, it's mandatory for all the alive sharks that are brought on board, their liberation should be immediate and as soon as possible. And of course, well, preserving the integrity of the crew, taking into consideration all the measures to guarantee its safety. And regarding the dead sharks, you should use it completely, except for silky sharks or oceanic white tip sharks, which we will see in the next slide. The retention of the species is completely forbidden. And for the well, and the mutilation of the fins, well, the fins mutilation will be subject to observation to audit regarding the observation. Regarding this resolution for sharks C1605, this resolution well recommends the direct release, and should use ramps, uh, nets, or any other method or system on board proposed, well, good within the good practices proposed by the technicians in TUNACONS, or well, in the ISSF. In this resolution, it is forbidden to use hooks or any perforation on the body of the shark to be lifted by the tail, by the gills, by the fins, or any rope to be passed around the fins, or any preparation done to the body of the animal. But we know these practices are being less used. And now, thanks to the videos that we've seen and the videos that TUNACONS has published in its website, vast majority of the crew performs correctly all these good practices. Regarding the resolution of the silky shark C2308, the main requisite is for them to be immediately released. Those who are alive, of course, and which are in a less damaging way. It is prohibited. The retention on board retention is prohibited, and in case an involuntary retention may happen, retention. Well, I want to emphasize here or explain here. Retention is considered when the animals go to the storage unit, or when they used for food. Maybe we cut them down to use it, I don't know, as a chum, or as a bait. In case the retention is not intentional, and maybe they accidentally went into the storage unit, the bodies have to be delivered to the authority, to the main authority of the vessel. And if the authority is not available, they have to be donated for human consumption, and a report must be sent to the IATTC personnel. Regarding the oceanic white tip shark C1110, same thing. It must be immediately released and non-damaged, and in the least damaging way. Do it cautiously as possible. The retention on board is forbidden. The transportation or transporting of this animal is forbidden. Its storage of this animal is forbidden, and either the complete merchandise, or in part selling it in parts, it's forbidden. Well, 30 years ago, this animal was the most abundant animal, well, the second most abundant after the silky one, but there was an impact, a huge impact, a fishing impact in the last 30 years. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the long line or the artisanal fishing. We don't really know what happened with this. Well, the reasons why the population of this shark went down, peaked in so little amount of time. But annually, well, there's 40, 50 sightings by the observers that they can observe and record. There are not many. Regarding the whale shark, resolution C1906, C1605, the first one, well, it promotes the safe resolution using the reasonable methods, and the incidents with this the shark has to be informed directly to the CPC of the vessel. And this resolution is forbidden to perform a set or a fishing of this set for this shark if you see it before netting. Well, sometimes we only see the big dorsal fin or the caudal fin, and if you see it before netting, then we stop and we not perform the netting. And if we saw it after the netting, well, we have to take all the measures, the precautionary measures uh, to release them correctly in the resolution C16005. The trawling or the dragging of this animal is forbidden using ropes or anything. But now we know that the crew is highly trained in this. They are, I believe, 100% of the time that they are released before the pouch is formed, and we haven't had any fatal incidents with the whale sharks in the last years. Oh, now, resolutions regarding turtles. Well, the requisites of these resolutions, C1904, uh, promotes that any turtle that is seen within the scene is to be released before the pouch is formed. If the turtles are not seen within the scene, uh, well, probably we have to release a little bit. If we do not see it, we have to release the net a little bit, and well, any we have to release every every turtle that I don't know. You're looking at a fat and you see a netted turtle, and it's quite normal for the crew member to release it softly. Well, we have to create a report for of interaction with this turtle and to deliver this report to the authorities. And also, it is recommended to have turtle releasing tools on board. And regarding the resolution C0405, it is forbidden to send any plastic bags or plastic waste that may eventually or potentially trap any type of turtle species or any other species for that matter. Regarding the conservation of rays, manta rays, or stingrays, C1504, the liberation or release of this organism that are captured to to be released non-damaged and as feasibly as possible. Now we know they were using platforms or specialist platforms. Um, I don't know, lines, specialized trolleys. Well, here it is also forbidden the retention, the transport, or selling, or even offering to sell. It's forbidden. And in case of accidental accidental retention of manta rays, they have to be um, presented to the authority. Uh, Likewise, with sharks, we do not use hooks to send it back to the ocean. We cannot lift them from the gills or the blowholes, and any type of puncturing for maybe to to plant to plant a line or anything. No, this is not a practice. We cannot puncture any animal. This is not a practice done in the EPO. And in this case, we've come a long way regarding the good practices for the release of manta rays. Regarding the scientific investigation floating devices or buoys, the resolution C1103 forbids the interaction or fishery, any type of fishery, in a radius of 1 nautical mile, uh, either to seen or trawl or hold any type of vessel. To this, it is forbidden to hold these buoys. We cannot bring them on board unless this is previously authorized by the authority. In case, let's say, I don't know, maybe they found it offshore or damaged, yeah, we can only then. And the slingshot effect is forbidden where the vessel gets uh, gets roped around this buoy and by any means the rope gets cut, and well, there's a liberation of energy there. And also, it is mandatory for in this resolution to take all the measures to avoid the netting around these buoys, and should there be any type of netting, to remove this device with causing the least amount of damage to this buoy investigation buoy. And this is the last resolution that I want to talk about, which is the resolution for with biodegradable FADs. This is C23 Series 4 regarding the design and biodegradation of the fats. This is a new resolution for this year. Well, this was in the meeting of Canada, where we promote the share of materials and knowledge and experience regarding biodegradable materials. The first requisite is for January 1st to 2025. It's the usage of netting is completely forbidden in any type of fats, and we can only use biodegradable materials. And also this resolution, for us to be able to monitor the transition from one non-biodegradable fat to a completely biodegradable fat in a period of time in which the resolution stipulates, we've performed or created 5 categories. The first one is totally biodegradable fat, and number 5 is a fat that still has non-biodegradable materials. So starting on 2026, that is January 1st, 2026, the vessels will be able to set and reset fats located within these 5 categories. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to be a little brief because I have another meeting in 5 minutes, but starting in 2029, in January 1st, the vessels will only be able to plant or set fats located in the categories 1 and 2. That is completely biodegradable fats, and category 2, which are fats fabricated with biodegradable materials, except for the floating components, which could be plastic, let's say buoys or seines, or well, and also the usage of nylon ropes that may be used to reinforce either the buoy or the tail. Okay, and again, I will leave this slide here so you can get familiarized with this slide. I have to be brief, and I'm sorry because of that. And lastly, in the IHTC meeting in 2030, the members will decide whether all the vessels will set or reset fats only in category 1, that is completely biodegradable, starting on 2031. I would like for all of you, please remember this resolution C2304. You can go to the website of the commission, and you can go in deep about this resolution to read all the categories and everything that is related to this resolution. I believe with that I am done. Thank you very much. Any question, comment? I don't know if Jose Luis could complement anything, but I have to say goodbye because I have another meeting that is already starting. Thank you very much. And it has been my pleasure to share this conference with you. Thank you. Okay, Marlon, thank you very much. Okay, as Marlon mentioned, this last resolution C2304, I consider is extremely important. We've worked with biodegradable fats, well, even with the companies in conforming to TUNACONS starting in 2027, because, well, this was already seen, the traditional fat that we use with nettings and cables, corks maybe, well, these have to be eliminated. Well, 2 problems, either both contamination and also the netting of ETP species. And this is a procedure that will start happening. We will start in 2025 up until 2030. We will only be able to use these categories. But let's say 2030, it will be decided if it has to be 100% biodegradable, natural, in this case in TUNACONS, voluntarily started applying the idea of using 100% biodegradable fats. So we're a little ahead on time with that. We're working on durability, and we're hoping maybe we won't get to 2030. We won't reach 2030, but beforehand to have this installed. Well, this would be the topic. We'll have a 5-minute break, but before the break, I would like to offer you, well, regarding the department, all the activities, in this case, the fleet, they will have regarding good practices. This is a video that uh, I like to share with the captains to keep it on board and to continuously present it to your crew, both for good practices and also the management. Okay, let's go. Okay, in this video, you will find good practices for the catch and release of sensible species. Regarding the IATTC, the recent directs, the actions for release have to be ASAP, as feasible as possible, as soon as you find them in your nets or in your prow. Always maintaining the safety of your crew. When you see animals in nettings, you should release the sharks from the netting and release them as soon as possible. The sharks on deck should be released back to the ocean as soon as possible using a platform or via the escaping routes. Should there not be any of them, we should use either a netting or a crane or similar equipment. It is forbidden to use hooks or similar instruments to manipulate the sharks. It is forbidden to grab the animals from their heads, gills, or blowholes, or using any type of wiring around their body. This something emphatic is not to pierce the body of the animal. For instance, to pass a line to lift it. For small sharks, you can manipulate them by only one. They can be manipulated by only one. Very better to grab the pectoral fin or the dorsal fin, and the other one the tail. Just let the animal fall to release it, always with the head pointed towards the water. You should avoid to toss it abruptly and any other position. The medium-sized sharks, they could be manipulated by 2 people. One will grab the pectoral fin and the other one the tail, and then let them release them. For bigger sharks, we promote the use of a platform if the release is delayed, and to keep it relaxed, cover its head with a moist or wet cover. Introduce water with a proper flow. Place a fish in its mouth while manipulation. What not to do during manipulation: never grab the fish only by the tail. Never introduce your fingers in the gills. Avoid pressing the organs of the animals. Liberation of manta rays before any fishing procedure. The crew should be ready for the liberation of big animals. We can also use the pulley to send it back to the water. You could place it on top of the net and then let the animal fall into the water. Remember, never introduce any type of, either your fingers or any other element in the gills of the animal. Liberation of turtles. In case of juvenile turtles, you can manipulate them. Only one crew member can manipulate them, and the big ones use 2. Hold the turtle by both sides of its shell and release the animal carefully with the head always pointed to the water, and avoid tossing it abruptly. In case the turtle is a little lethargic, let it rest in a tipped surface with 15 centimeters tipped. This will allow the water to go out of the lungs. It's important to maintain the animal moist and covered from the sun. not to do when manipulating a turtle. Never grab them from their fins. Never let them upside down, because in this position they cannot breathe. We urge you to collaborate with the observer, onboard observer member of the TUNACONS program, who will occasionally and authorized by the company will show liberation, will record liberation efforts. This to show the world your best practices. Of course, always taking care of your safety. If you are being recorded, please smile or show a thumbs up. Your effort allows us from TUNACONS to call you. This is what allows you, or allows us to call you, rescuers on board. Thank you for taking care of the environment. As you know, the worldwide tendency on tuna fishery is migrating to sustainable practices, and the company in which you work is an important member of TUNACONS conservation of tuna, from which we offer scientific and technical assistance to comply with the recognized standards for the sustainability of fishery in the Eastern Pacific Oceans. Regarding the fats, first, there are three things you need to know. First one, the ATTC has made mandatory a calendar that will start in 2026 to start change for 2031 to use biodegradable fats. That is, that what you did a couple of years ago, what you've been doing voluntarily preparing for this changes, now it's mandatory for all the companies. All the details on this topic, you can find them in the online via our workshops, training workshops, and in your company will have a follow-up. The second is that your company and all the members of TUNACONS have adopted from 2021 the commitment to change the 20% of the fats for EcoFats prototypes. That is a prototype that we have been developing. This is why we want to thank you for your important collaboration, and we urge you to continue using it, because this will stop being optional for those who want to maintain or remain in the sustainable fishing. Third one is that the technical team from TUNACONS have created this material for you with our recommendations for the proper management of the EcoFats, which will help with duration. Throughout all the project, we have applied treatment for vegetable fibers with natural products to improve the durability of these fabrics, and that will comply with the same expectations of a traditional fats. Nonetheless, when management and planting, the management is not properly, since we have to consider that the origin, since they are vegetable, they will wear and tear easily in the water. Thus, their manipulation have to be according to the state of the material. Let's call about the setting. Before setting, we have to wet the tail. So once it is tossed to the water, it will go deep into the ocean. Okay, verify that the tail is not tangled or netted. When you retrieve an EcoFat, don't use the grappling hook, because it could tear the fabric. So pull it from the tail. If you're going to retrieve it, it's better to use a speedboat for the mariner to hold it with a line. When it's on board or on the side, it might be better to move the rigging so that the natural fibers of the fat does not get tangled with the vessel. Don't let it abruptly fall, because the canes and fabrics might be destroyed, especially if the EcoFat has been more than 60 days in the water. Once you retrieve it, don't pass it on top of the long lines, because they could get tangled. It's better to remove the fats from the side of the vessel, where we are sure that following these guidelines will help us to have a better durability of EcoFats, by their name, they must be degradable. But with all of your effort and with a proper manipulation, we will avoid a quick degradation. Thank you very much for joining this change and for helping us. Regarding the good practices, it is important that this is something that we've been covering since 2017. And we saw it in Europe. Well, they have been using this topic regarding the problematic that we've had. Uh, well, everything that is human-made causes an impact. And in this case, we're performing sustainable fisheries. That means that all of our activities to be regulated and to minimize any type of impact that we can have. To perform a sustainable fishery, we have two challenges. In this case is could happen that we capture juveniles, members of species, and also, well, very specialized species. That's another. Well, we have accompanying fauna. That's the other challenges. For instance, wahoo fish, sharks, and turtles, and also we have other. Well, some other species that worldwide are considered threatened, ETP, and that is managed by the, well, as Marlon mentioned, it's regulated by authorities. As he mentioned, these species are considered vulnerable, and that's why we have well, good practices on board and for catching and releasing to improve the maneuvers that we have. Well, the objective is to minimize the impact our activities have. We continue. Well, Marlon already mentioned the resolutions that we have regarding sharks, sea turtles, and manta rays. Within these resolutions, here we can see, well, they're specialized or they're specified their manipulation. In the case, well, in this case, in the video we covered the manipulation methods. Well, Maggie in the video mentioned what we must not do. Why? Because, well, these are species that have no bones. They only have cartilage, and with their own body weight, they can, well, their fins can get damaged, and the turtles, as we do, they don't have ribs. When the turtle is upside down, all the water that goes into their lungs, and, well, on board, if you see an animal turn turned around, the animal will get desperate and might die. And manta rays, we also covered this. We should have always a gantry or a crane or a platform or any type of fabric for big species. There are other methods proposed by the ICC. Well, we continue. Well, here, well, we have some the videos for good practices that you have. We saw this in the previous video. Our communicator will collected them, that they grab all these activities and all the actions that you perform, and that's the onboard rescuers. Well, here we can see them in YouTube. Well, regarding the liberation and releases and the good practices that we perform, both for manta rays, for sharks, for turtles. Moving along, fear. For instance, we can see releases for sharks, for turtles. Something extremely important also that she mentioned in the video is, well, right here. Please activate this video. It's quite important because, well, you can see, well, sometimes you're just looking around and you see a turtle that's completely tangled in a line or in a net, and maybe, well, it's not associated with tuna, So what we do, we stop the boat and we release the animal. Even though you stop performing your job, this action is extremely important. Worldwide has been categorized as a best practice, a great practice, worldwide again. And well, congratulations to all of you because of all your effort at this video. Uh, well, this you can see the applications and your release for turtles and rays. This for big vessels, Spanish vessels, they have this type of ramps. They have these hoppers when they embark the gantry. Annexed this type of canals or hoppers, or it's a tilted ramp that we can see here. Well, here practically from the hopper, it's easier just to place the shark here and let the animal just slide and get released. Yeah, better. This avoids the contact of a human animal, which could be dangerous. If the conditions on deck allows it, you can request the fleet chief or the captains maybe to apply something like this. If not, I remember when I was on board, we used to have some canals that we would have to release. I don't know if they still have it. Maybe we could place them in the maybe on the side where we distribute the fish probably have something similar. These are guides, methods, well, that synthesize everything that we could perform. You have to know the conditions of your vessel, the space in which you can perform any type of adaptation, the resolutions. Well, that's what's important to try and release this type of species as soon as possible, always making sure that you are safe and your crew is safe. Let's continue. For instance, here well, in this video, we can see uh, Aerofish vessel they captured here on top of the gantry. They placed a type of fabric or a net or ropes that they use when they have captured, in this case, well, within the pouch manta rays, a big giant manta rays. Uh, this moment when we are working, well, the match rate it's on top. So right now, what they do is just they retrieve the fishery, the catch, and then they release. Well, this is a video from the captain. Maybe the maneuver could improve a little bit, but it was a great releasing method regarding time. The idea is to release this animal back to the ocean as soon as possible. Nonetheless, um, when it falls to the water, okay, here, well, some tests they performed, and we actually had a good result. The battery was released and unharmed. Here, we'll continue with the next slide, please. I don't know if you can see the netting there. Well, you can see a type of a rope, well, similar to this one, similar. Oh, here you can see this is what they used something similar in their gantry, and this is what we're talking about. Uh, the ISSF and the ASTI, they're promoting to have something similar on the mouth of the deck. When we retrieve the fish or the catch, we have this type of, let's call it filtering. And so when the fish, the smaller fish or the catch, the intended catch, passes through and the manta ray remains here. And here we can see some type of rope or this design to place the manta ray in this body, in this framework. And while this happens, the other part of the crew continues manipulating the catch. I don't know, maybe something you can copy, you can adapt your urge to do that. That's just the idea of to uh, to adapt it to you, to your needs. Also, whale shark. This is quite important. It's forbidden to set nettings when we see whale sharks. Used to be that we could do it, but in case you don't see the whale shark now, accidentally you perform the netting. Well, this is the best way to release the animal. Sometimes here you can see the head of the animal is the prow or the bow. Well, the idea is to take it out of the net and let it and release it correctly, but never trawling it, never dragging it, or rigging it by the tail. I've seen this. I saw one vessel doing this, and also the animal. Well, the captain said, "Hey, release it, let it go," and well, the animal the animal moved around and why it's important to register all the incidents. Well, thanks to the videos that we've seen, it is evidence, or we can see that the application of these good practices are offering results. Used to be well, well, we know that any type of fishery generates impact, and this is the evidence that you are actually using good practices and to socialize, specifically the protection of these type of species, and to safeguard um, the survival of these animals. So it's important to have a record, either a video or a photograph or notebook. Continue. Well, that's why it's important when we started this certification process. One of the indicators was, well, aside from the catches that you have, what happens. Uf, no escucho muy bien. There were no records. So we created this data collection grid. So we have so many of them. Well, this is part of the certification process. Well, at the moment when you perform any type of activity, you are obliged to show your activity. And if you have to demonstrate that the fishery is complying with the sustainability standards, here we have, well, used to be we had a physical format. Now we have a digital format. We created a digital format. I believe that well, it's extremely important for all, well, not only you but all the captains. But with this format, we have one of our coworkers who retrieves all this information, uh, manages this information. So, well, here he is. Well, as Jose Luis mentioned, well, regarding data, the data is extremely important. The information that you offer is always record. Every record, every data has a direct impact on how we manage resources. For instance, here it allows us to determine the impact we've had with the eco fats. This from January to May. Well, tons of capture yellow tip captures only till August. We can see so many sets in eco fats. Well, whenever we have an eco fat set, and also with skipjack in August, we saw that we captured 740 tons with the eco fats, and also the behavior per sets it's 20.11 tons. And critical when we talk about vulnerables, the interactions, for instance, from August so far, we've seen in our data 10 releases of turtles in these zones right here. Well, you can see 58 releases of manta rays, and in this zones right here. And as we saw at the beginning of the presentation, 1,136 releases of shark, majority silky sharks. And here we can see the zones where they were released. Next slide, please. Here I've set two examples of how the digital formats arrive. It's important to see this because here we can see a properly filled format and the other, well, another that should be corrected regarding the information. So for instance, here we can see how they captured a yellow tip fin, and he or she did not register in two sets, but only in one. This is a mistake because, well, he registered two, but it was the same set. This is something we shouldn't do. And, well, here we should have the tons, because we can see here, but well, we had different captures, but the captain said it in two different, which is one. This is something important to mention, that the data collection is extremely important. Misfiled data could abruptly change the statistics and to may have a damage in what we're doing. Well, in this case, it's not necessary because, well, in this case, it's not necessary because we do not perform the traceability. Well, the nature of this, well, because the nature of the digital formats, well, when you do this, you're, oof, no escucho nada. So when we perform, for instance, the release of this, oof,
ya no está escribiendo y automáticamente esta posición ya pasa ahí. Entonces ya lo que queremos hacer más bien, después del lance que pasa con el cantado, lo levanta, queda en el lado. Por eso que ya se sigue. Pero nosotros entendemos esto que para que la secuencia con las otras datos no sigan igual. También es necesario el cantado. No, no, este es el formato interno de la empresa. Entonces, antes en este caso, la certificadora preguntan información a la.
I'm very sorry, we cannot interpret this part as the microphone and the volume in the audio in general is very bad. Sorry about the inconvenience.
Por eso es que este formulario es interno para la empresa. O sea, no piensen de que pónganlo porque digamos, con el tratado, con los federales, no lo anota. No tenía respuesta a este público. Pero es parecido. Sí, es parecido, pero aquí no, en este formulario lo que pasa es que ustedes realmente no utilizaron el físico que acá en el tema ciudadano iniciaron. Este físico antes era en papel, entonces ya tenían 25 lápices en papel, pero en digital en Excel es más fácil, porque prácticamente se van registrando los lápices y así mismo que hemos pedido minimizar trabajo para ustedes, para que haya un vínculo con los otros lados.
Claro, la idea es facilitarle el llenado de datos a ustedes. Si hay cualquier observación, veo que llenar el formulario, cualquier
well, the objective, as you mentioned, is to fill in any type of observation. Any type of observation, even if it's not part of the format, we could accept it. Well, as I mentioned, we had two methods of sustainable fishery. In this case, we to have a company. Well, regarding the yellow tip or skipjack tuna, now practically we've seen this problem that we have juvenile members of the species are too small. So part of the resolutions was to, well, they were too small. So based on all this information, we established, well, regarding this topic, started in 2008 regarding this agreement. It stated that starting in 2009, any vessel class 6, that is 364 metric tons, to install this netting, this proper netting in their nets. So the big vessels with this at the pouching, that we had 6 models.
Pero ellos no estaban viendo de que la idea es que los
They were
juveniles
saying that the idea is that juveniles would come in. So nowadays, there are companies for class 6 who would use this sort of grid, and those that were the most successful were the ones with the grid that was used from Rob. Here, this is this sort of grid. As you can see, it's a net, but it has stainless steel wires, and so the pressure at first was not good, but now we use the new rope ones and we haven't found any problems there. And so there was continuity in the formation. So now we have this formation, and we do this with the grid. So we are the vessels that are not mandated to have this rope, that's fine, but class 6 need to keep this grid. So it is important, as I am telling you, this is coming. It is part of the commitment, of the right commitment regarding sustainable fisheries that we have to comply with and improve. So based on the information sent by you with this form for 2019 and 2020, 2021 and 2022, we have information for greatest release of a skipjack. As you can see, here we have yellowfin, and over here the other one. So here we have, based on the sinking of the grid, we have said fish in 4 category of 25% of sinking of the mesh. We have less than 200 tons of this sort of a species, talking about skipjack yellowfin. And we see the range in between 25 and 75%. We have the most releases of these 3 types of species. It seems a lie to see that 100% we will have. That the problem here is that we have large catches, and there are large catches, and it is more difficult for juveniles to be able to be released. And likewise, there are sets of floating devices. However, there is no information. So this is the data that we have to date, and they're very important data because the IATTC, within its investigation and research, is going to begin again with this assessment of these sort of tools. We are trying to determine if the location of this grid image is in a place, because we have results, but probably the location is not well defined because captains say this shouldn't be there, others yes, others no. So this is something that needs to be assessed. This is another very important topic. So this is regarding what I had to say. Oh, here we have baggage. Here we're talking about, in this case, accompanying fauna, and we have wahoo, we have a small mahi-mahi, and the grid for tuna is important, but it is being released as commercial species that are not our target based on this sort of grid. So this is of benefit to this. So we can see that a type of grid is actually working. This is regarding grids. Data is very important. I always tell captains this information. I know you're busy, and I know that you are maneuvers, and those who have grids, you need to know what's happening. Let's say 100 kilos went through, they need to record this more than 0.1 tons. And when there are species such as wahoo or mahi-mahi, we need to be aware of that. Not exactly, but we do need to have a record of this. So we need to see that, let's say they weighed a ton within, or probably 200 kilos, that then you will put 0.2 tons. That's what was seen But the thing is that people are not recording things, and it is important to record. Another one of the points, then we have two additional topics, and now we think the projects that we have for the application process of the company. We have a project that was called Initiative for Taking Care of Galapagos, Iniciativa Cuidando Galapagos. So here there is incidence of the fats that are going to be in place in the islands, taking into account the sort of trash that is going to be removed. And the company has worked on this project, and we are going to have our partner here to present the objectives here. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Jasmine Macias from TUNACONS. Today I'm going to talk about the initiative Taking Care of Galapagos and how important this initiative is. As we have heard over this workshop, TUNACONS works with different projects. We have seen the project for working on best practices as we are doing now. We saw the importance of the eco-fat technique. We also went over the shark tagging project, but there is another project that is devoted to collaborate with the conservation of the Galapagos Islands through the implementation of a pilot program for recovering fats that have a high probability of entanglement. This initiative, just to let you know, has three fundamental pillars. The first one, the collection of fats. As I was telling you, we collect those fats to prevent the affectation of the coastal areas and the islands as well as coral reefs. The second one is underwater trash. We have implemented cleaning campaigns with local fishers to be able to clean the coast, but also contests for what we have also worked with divers to get underwater trash. And the third pillar is trainings. We are currently working on the development of FIPs in artisan fisheries in Galapagos, but you are very important actors in the first pillar for collection of fats. People were saying like there are fats that are reaching the island, and just to have evidence and actually know how many fats there are, we implemented this initiative. Next slide. Just to tell you a little bit about the results, during 2022, we started with this pilot project. Since June to December, we collected 12 full fats. In 2023, currently, since January to date, we have collected 5 fats, and these are the results of those fats that have a high probability of entanglement. And people may say, oh, artisan fishers in Galapagos are stealing my boys. They are stealing from me. And actually, in this project, to prevent this sort of inconveniences, we have created a route or an effective communication process, meaning you will only get to know those fats when the fleet, the head of the fleet or captain calls our local coordinator so that we can go and get that fat. So as this is a pilot project, a fat will be collected when the record, position record of the buoy states that it's 15 miles away from the coast of some of the islands, or that it has already been stopped. Well, that it's already on the coast, and depending on what happens first. Currently, we're working in the 3 populated islands, Santa Cruz, San Cristobal, and Isabela. And we also see that we have Pinzón, Santa Fe, and Floriana. In this pilot project, we have begun in these islands. And so for you to know, whenever you're working on fishing and when you see a fat with this possibility of entanglement, the communication line is for the ship armor, the head of the fleet or captain, come and get in touch with the local coordinator. He's in Galapagos. She has been identified. Her name is Grace Zunda, and as coordinator, she is in charge of getting in touch with the fisher, the closest one, based on where the fat is positioned. And we are going to actually look for the coordinates. We will give them the fat's coordinates, the position and the speed. With this, they will get a local collector, the closest one, and this fisher will intercept the fat to prevent it from being stranded. So this is sent to the receiver. Next one. And once the team has already collected the fat, is always in contact with the local coordinator so that they can go and intercept this. And later on, the receiver, the collector delivers the fat to the receiver at the island. We're working with the municipal, the centralized autonomous governments in Galapagos and the national park. After this, the fat starts being recycled. This material that is useful can be recycled and the other can be sent to a dump. So after this, the coordinator informs TUNACONS about the evidence, who they contacted, who went and get it, who were the lucky ones, and the time that the whole procedure took, the weight of the fat, and with this, they pay the fisher to support the local fishers because they are either in a closure or they have fishing activities and stop them for actually working on this activity. That's why it's important for you to know these projects. Follow us in social media. You can see everything that TUNACONS is doing to defend and have evidence of our work of sustainable actions that we have. Actions are important, therefore they need to be communicated. Communication, they didn't, otherwise there is not the impact that we want. I believe this is all. Here is my email. Just in case you have any doubts, you can get in touch with us.